Greetings, and welcome to this episode in the series of videos on working with remote sensing with ArcGIS Pro. This series is brought to you by AmericaView in partnership with Virginia Tech, the Virginia Cooperative Extension, and Virginia View. I'm Sheree Auckland, and I'll be your guide. This video tutorial series builds on ongoing and previous collaborations and contributions provided by the USDA NIFA through the ADVANCE project, the National Science Foundation, through the GeoTED UAS project, the Ohio State University, and the Virginia Space Grant Consortium. This video series is associated with the Remote Sensing with ArcGIS Pro 2nd Edition book. We will use Landsat 9 imagery in this series, and we'll also begin with Chapter 10. Links to resources for this video series, including free access to the textbook and to the videos for Chapters 1 through 9, are available in the video description below. In this chapter, we'll use the completed Chapter 13 ArcGIS Pro project to create a composite image using two different tools, the GeoProcessing tool and the Imagery Process Shortcut tool. A composite image is a single image composed of several different bands. Landsat images can be displayed in different band combinations using a composite image, such as natural color using the red, green, blue bands. We can combine different bands to help differentiate between land cover types, including urban areas, forests, agriculture, and water bodies. If you'd like to review the uses for different bands and the wavelengths associated with them for the many Landsat missions, review Chapter 13 of your textbook. For this exercise, we'll use two methods to generate two composite images. Before beginning this chapter, be sure you have completed Chapters 12 and 13 and open the completed project from Chapter 13. Ensure your project has layers in descending numerical order in the contents pane as you see here, and all symbology is grayscale. I saved this project as Chapter 14 before proceeding. Pause this video to make any changes that you need. Next, let's check the workspace environments by going to the Analysis tab on the ribbon. Choose Environments from the GeoProcessing group, and check that the current workspace and Scratch workspace are set to the project's geodatabase. If not, use the Browse option at the end of the input box to navigate and connect to the geodatabase. Now we're ready to create a composite image. I'm going to demonstrate compositing using a GeoProcessing tool and an Imagery Process Shortcut tool. I'll use all 11 bands of the Landsat imagery for both examples, but you can create a composite from fewer bands if you don't need them all for your project. From the Analysis tab on the ribbon, choose Tools, and in the GeoProcessing pane, search for Composite, and select the Composite Bands Data Management tools. Let's add the input rasters. Let's choose the down arrow. Here we see all the rasters that we have in our contents pane. Let's just select Band 1, and that populates the box. If you make a mistake, you can click the X down here to remove it. Let's continue this process until all 11 bands are entered. Make sure you see all of the bands in descending numerical order in the tool list. I'll explain this importance in a minute. Now, under Output Raster, let's name the new raster. I'm going to give it the same name as the text. It's a good idea to include the bands used when you name it. This way, if you have multiple composites from the same Landsat scene, you know which bands were used by the name. Since we set the workspaces, the composite should be saved in the project geodatabase by default. Doesn't hurt to check though. Now let's run the tool. This could take a minute. Each of these 11 bands is a large file, and they're being combined to form one huge composite multispectral image. And this green banner indicates the tool is done. Notice we now have a new layer in Contents, displayed in the default symbology of red, green, blue, or RGB. The image appears to be in color, but it's off somehow. We would expect an RGB image to be in natural color, as though you took it with your camera, but this looks slightly blue, and the colors and contrast seem somewhat muted. So here's what's going on. ArcGIS Pro displayed Band 1 in red, Band 2 in green, and Band 3 in blue, which is the default that lines up with the computer's RGB color guns. You can see here that Landsat 9's Band 2 is the blue visible range, of the electromagnetic spectrum. Band 3 is the green visible, and band 4 is the red visible. Because the colors displayed by ArcGIS Pro don't align with the band colors in the Landsat image, we don't see the natural color we expect of RGB. This is pretty easy to fix. We can change the symbology and show different bands with either red, green, or blue color combinations. We'll cover that in Chapter 16, Band Combinations using Landsat 9 imagery. Only 3 bands are displayed in ArcGIS Pro, so let's check to see if all 11 bands are actually in the composite image. Let's go to the properties of the composite image. Recall that I am right-clicking, Properties, Source, and expand the raster information category. This shows it's an 11-band image. So now which band is which? We'll cover this when we get to Chapter 16 and we show you how to change symbology. This is where the importance of the bands being in the correct numerical order will be obvious. Now save your project, and let's proceed to the next compositing technique using the Imagery Process shortcut tool. To begin, we select all of the individual band layers in the Contents pane. I'm going to choose the first one and shift-click the last one. On the Imagery tab, drop down the Process menu and choose Composite. You see we have a new layer in Contents called Composite. I'm going to save at this point, and I'll explain why in just a minute. The new composite image has the default name Composite at the top of Contents, and we see the default RGB bands. Let's check to see if the other bands are present like we did before. Check the Properties, Source, Raster Information, and you see we do have 11 bands present. The 2 composite images look the same, and both processes appear to produce the same result. So what is the difference? The composite image created using the shortcut tool is not a permanent image that can be used in other analyses and is only present in this particular project. So let's look at our workspace in Catalog. That composite file is not shown, and if we open the geodatabase, it's not there either. So if you close the project without saving or ArcGIS Pro closed for any reason, the composite would no longer be there, which is why I saved as soon as I ran the tool. So the reason you might choose to use a shortcut tool is to quickly inspect the Landsat imagery for different band combinations and display, not for an analysis. It's not saved for later. Couple of recommendations here. I mentioned before that you may not need all 11 bands for your project, and we recommend that you include only specific bands required for your project. Also, recall that ArcGIS Pro assigns the bands. For example, if bands 2 through 5 are the only bands used from the Landsat image, blue visible through near infrared, once composited, the band numbers will be represented in ArcGIS Pro as bands 1 through 4. In this case, you must carefully document and note the specific bands that you used in the composite. In case you forget to note which bands were used and in which order, you can refer to your processing steps in ArcGIS Pro. Just go to History in the Analysis tab, point to Composite Bands, and a pop-up displays the input order. It's not very reader-friendly, but the information is there. Now save and close your project and proceed to Chapter 15, subsetting a composite Landsat 9 image.